Hi everyone, my name is Gisela, and it's so good to see so many familiar faces here and so many new ones as well. Well, today I want to share with you a bit about how we understood our processes before actually choosing AI tools to optimize them. So a bit of a what you'll be getting today. Today we want to share with you how we have mapped our current processes, and you can too. How we actually identify where AI tools can fit to turn our workflows into more efficient workflows. How we triage and test said AI tools, and also how we maintain human connection and accountability in all of this process. So a few caveats and disclaimers to start with. Today, we are going to be using AI to refer not to the entirety of artificial intelligence, but rather to the newer avalanche of large language models, the ChatGPTs of the world, all of these new tools that are revolutionizing the industry and the world. While we will be mentioning a few of the tools, we're neither endorsing nor shaming any of them. We will just be using them as examples. And finally, we are going to center this talk around our software delivery lifecycle. So as a technical director, that is the process that I've been looking at with my team. But what we described today could easily be transferred to other processes within your business. Okay, so first a bit of a recap. Why are we talking about AI and what's it actually good at, right? So AI excels at processing large volumes of information. It's great at finding patterns, automating repetitive tasks. It's also strong in some areas like predictive analysis, image and speech recognition, natural language processing, and decision optimization. What we're particularly interested in is using AI for finding patterns and for using past information to create new stuff that is inspired in, but not the same. So I wanted to talk to you a bit about why we even got into defining a process for implementing AI tools, and what journey we went through. So I imagine that many of you might have gone through big phases of like, oh my God, AI, it's going to change everything. AI, we need to adapt right now. We need to make sure that we are at the forefront of innovation and that we are using all the tools that are available, or we will be left behind. And it's a lot. It's a lot. It was a lot for me. It was a lot for our team. There are so many tools out there. You really cannot look at everything. So our journey was a bit like this. I actually checked, and this whole journey started roughly 2 years ago. I think it was March 2023 when like ChatGPT first came out, and everybody was like, wow, this is revolutionary. And then I didn't count how many times people were hailing new tools as the dethroner of ChatGPT, but let's say there's been a lot of tools in that time. So first, we started with a lot of excitement and panic, and all of it together, everything all at once. We then discussed the important things. Okay, so let's talk about ethics. Let's talk about privacy. Let's talk about how we are going to evaluate whether any of these tools that bring a lot of information from other sources and who might be stealing our information as we ask it questions, how does it align with our values? Who owns the IP? That led us to a phase of suspicion and, like thinking, this is too much. AI is evil. It was a big time sink. We were worried about the human factor and how using AI for things like producing content was dehumanizing the output and unifying all of the voices. And we also had a decent concern about the environmental impact. But performance gains, AI is making businesses faster. The fear of missing out in the entire industry was such a big driver, and there was a lot of anxiety, but nobody was really doing anything, and there was tool over tool over tool over tool over tool. And many of those tools were frankly not really relevant to us. We were like, great, that's an amazing tool, but that doesn't relate to what we do as a business. So amazing, great to hear that it exists. This all led to spotty adoption, loss of interest. People's initial excitement was really waning. And yeah, so we went back to wondering, so why AI? We identified two main areas. There's people who use AI for actually selling it as a product, and then there's people who use AI to improve the way they do things. Today, we're going to be focusing on that second area, using AI to improve the way you do the work that you already excel at. So what we decided was that we needed focus, we needed a framework, and we needed to understand which tools were actually good for our business. So with that preamble, let me show you how we actually went about mapping our development process. So we started in one of our AI guild meetings. We had been talking about when we realized that we needed to get focus, we got the entire development team together and we said, look, you know what? If we want to make AI work for us, we need to understand how we work. And we started really high level. We said, let's pick one process, any process, and describe it, in a way that didn't need to be exact. We just all needed to agree. That for us was really important because getting everybody on the same page allowed us to get buy-in. There were so many people who were disenamored, and actually sharing with the team got us to a place where everybody was moving together. At a high level, this is our development process. Somebody defines a business requirement, then we do the development, then we go through peer review, static analysis, quality assurance, and finally, the feature is live and we release it. We decided that there were a few categories that we wanted to use for color coding all of these steps in our process. Color red was human only. AI can never do that. Yellow is, this is potentially automatable, but kind of hard. And by that, I don't mean that it is objectively hard. I mean that for our team, with our time and our resources and our existing knowledge, it just felt like too much effort than rather just doing the thing. I know that you cannot really see it on the screen, but these are two different greens. There is a lime green and there is like a colder green. So the lime green at the top, that is like, oh yes, like this is partially automatable. We can use AI, but like as an assist, say for example, for getting initial suggestions or prompts for writing something, but actually somebody doing the writing. And green was like, honestly, this is low-hanging fruit. This sounds like it's really automatable. Like, why wouldn't we automate it? And we had my favorite category, unicorns and rainbows. This category was reserved for things where we thought, wouldn't it be great if AI just did this and I didn't need to do it ever again? And after a lot of chatting and categorizing, that initial high-level process turned into this. We're going to quickly jump to Miro now because obviously we all love a good Miro board and we all love to see things and navigate them. Plus the font is so small. So we're going to take the first step as an example. As you can see, we started left to right. We didn't color code everything, but that in itself is information. The things that you did not color code are probably things that you don't see the value in automating anyway. So I would say don't get too stressed about that. But we started with the first one, and we said, okay, business requirements, ticket definition, for example, a person actually writing a JIRA ticket with the requirement, and we marked that one as red. However, that is red with nuance, right? We believe that defining business requirements can only be done by a human, because no AI tool is going to come to you and say, hey, you know what? It would be great if your business did that. Or like, hey, how about we actually set up a meal plan for you for the week? You can program it to do that. You can actually ask it to do that. But initially, you need to have gone to a tool to say, hey, I want you to just automatically create a meal plan for me every Monday, and I'll just roll with that. Or you can say, hey, I want you to have a look at the industry and give me monthly reviews of what other people are doing and what might be good suggestions for our product considering the competition. But initially, you have to ask it to do that. However, part of defining business requirements could possibly be automated. And that is when we started going from our very linear, very simple process and branching out into the subtasks. Okay, like what actually goes into defining a requirement. Defining a requirement needs you to have clear wording. AI is actually great with words. So natural language, that is something that it does really well. So we said, okay, we could ask it to clarify wording. It doesn't mean that we're going to accept the wording that it spits out, but we can ask it to evaluate whether it could be clear or whether something is ambiguous or not, and get it to critique how we wrote our requirement. We could also ask it to take a high-level requirement and give us a starting point for acceptance criteria. So tell us, okay, for this requirement, what should this actually do, and when will you know that the requirement has been met? We could get it to check for ticket definition completeness. There are a couple of ones there that we put into the yellow and the purple categories. The yellow one, sorry, that is very small, but for the yellow one, we said, okay, it could pull common requirements from similar projects. For those of you who don't know a lot about Springload, we are an agency, and that means that we are on a tight cycle of starting new projects quite frequently, and a few of those have, very similar patterns. So we could, for example, as an idea, say, hey, look at these older projects that we did that are kind of similar. What features might we want to suggest? But at the moment, we're like, yes, we could do that, but frankly, people know what they want or they don't, and your user research is going to indicate what functionality you should be adding. So you could use it as a suggestion, but we didn't deem it like super high value. And finally, we did our first purple one, which was, hey, wouldn't it be great if after you've had a meeting, the AI just went in, grabbed the transcript, created a bunch of tickets, and automatically put them into Jira, and then all you needed to do was talk for half an hour with your peers, and now you have a board full of to-do lists that are beautiful and have clear wording and have acceptance criteria, and they have all of the bells and whistles that you want in any good ticket that is ready to work with. We labeled it as purple when we first started, but to be honest, we think it might be closer to the green now. We don't think that is that hard anymore, but at the moment we're like, this specific activity is not really enhancing our process, but actually appending it and changing how we do things. There are steps that maybe we no longer need to do. Obviously, we went ahead and continued going through that process and breaking it into trees and trees and trees. I'm a big fan of mind maps, so this is kind of a mind map of its own. There are a few things that our team has experimented with and identified that AI is not up to right now. And one of them is, for example, accessibility reviews. So that is something where in traditionally, you've been able to automate some parts, but there is still a very big human factor in it. So accessibility reviews are one of the things that we would not be getting AI to do. But for example, you could get a testing plan and say, hey, if I wanted to do accessibility review, how would I go about it? If anybody is interested in seeing this as an example of a development flow, where I'm happy to share that. But again, I do recommend that you go with your team. One of the things that we definitely did here was to make sure that people could still comment on this. And you'll have to forgive me, I do not remember how to turn that back on Miro right now. So believe me that there's comments for each of those cards. So we went through that entire process of understanding what our development process is. So what happens after that, right? So mapping processes is something that people have been doing for a very long time. We added that extra layer of labeling each part of our process and saying, oh yeah, AI could possibly do that. AI maybe cannot do this. But where do we go from there? The next thing we did after that was identify areas where we thought that we might actually get a lot of value. What you want to pick for that is the intersection between what AI is really good at and what things are quite time consuming for you, are easy to verify by a human, by a person who can tell whether the AI output was good or not. And the third category was to choose things that you would love to do, but you never have time. And there never is budget, but you know that it's good practice, but you can never do it because it takes too much time. One big example of that for us, and that was quite a game changer, and we want to keep experimenting with that, was unit testing. So when you're writing code, it's really important to have automated tests that can check that the code is doing what you want it to do. But when you have a really large code base, it is very hard to get started. You have so much knowledge and the context is too big. And we thought, look, trust me when I say this is the lime green and not the darker green. Writing unit tests, yeah, maybe we could do it, but like AI should be an assist. This will not be an easy win altogether because there are still edge cases that AI will not know to test for. But then we actually split it into why is it lime green? Why is it, yeah, kind of like automated, but as an assist? And we realized that there are 3 factors. There are 2 things that are really easy to automate. One of them is write boilerplate test cases for manual testing. It's like, here's a feature. How might I test it? Well, if it's an edge feature, check that the number is higher than 18. Great, thank you. Easy. The second is writing factories. For those who don't know, a factory is a way of creating test data that matches the structure of your data, but is all bogus. And it doesn't matter. It's just fake data. What we realized that was really hard was writing edge cases that were rooted in specific business requirements. However, that is not usually what stops you from writing tests. What stops you from writing tests is not having the framework around it to start writing, not having those boilerplates, not having those factories. So realizing that that was something we could easily automate for us was a great light bulb moment. I mean, obviously the entire internet was already saying this, but nobody had time to look into it. And when we saw that, we're like, okay, we can go from having no tests to having a barrage of new tests and a code base that is a lot stabler for it in a decent amount of time. So after you've identified areas where you might want to use AI, because there are good examples, they take too long, you never do them, AI is allegedly great at it, then you actually start experimenting. So you choose one of your pain points. Doesn't need to be many. Actually, we had different people in our team who chose different areas of interest for them, and we started creating a board of experiments with an owner, and everybody who's interested in an area has a way of like working on it. For those experiments, make a shopping list. Say, okay, I would like AI to help me with this. Why? What do I want it to do, right? And then this is for any experiment anywhere, define success. Like, how do you know if that thing that you experimented with actually was successful, and whether that AI tool is something that you should adopt? So one example that we did for that was evaluating Cursor as a code editor and assistant. There is one pattern that we found with our board, and that is that if you want to find high value tasks and pain points to automate, they need to either be easy to automate or be really revolutionizing. So if we go back to our reference and our board, that is the greens and the purples. One of the reasons why we chose trying out Cursor or different code assistants, some people in the team use Aider, was because in the writing code process, there are a lot of greens. So that meant that for us, that was a good first candidate. It was like, it feels like it would be easy to automate, feels like we can gain a lot from it. So we made our shopping list. We said, okay, we wanted to be able to develop a feature from start to finish if we had clearly defined requirements. We wanted to write tests for a piece of code. We also want to get refactor suggestions, tell us how to make the code better. We want to get assistance setting up new tooling and helping make our developer experience a lot easier. Writing documentation, a really time-consuming task. We're like, would be great if for a piece of code that we wrote or that we asked it to write with us, it also produced documentation that made it really easy for people to understand. And then we thought it would be great if any code assistant, so this is transferable not only to Cursor, but to evaluating any code assistant out there. If we could get it to suggest best practice improvements, and if it could help us explain issues and what the root source might be. In terms of evaluation criteria, we decided that the time it took us to evaluate the tool should be comparable or less to the time it would take us to adopt it. So Cursor was one of the tools that actually comes with access to a lot of the models out there. The subscription is really low. I think it only costs $25 a month for a developer, which if you think about the time savings it could give you, $25, that's less than half an hour of a developer's time. If it's already saved you half an hour, then you're not really going to measure what improvements in time it's going to give you, because that's not really what you're looking at. It's already outperformed its cost, right? The value is already there. So we focused on other qualitative assessment criteria. The first one was, well, can it actually perform a task? We wanted it to do a task from start to finish, and we had our shopping lists of things we wanted it to do. So we're like, okay, can it actually do it? Will it meet our needs of what we want this tool to do? The second one was, well, it makes code suggestions and they are mostly correct. The code that it creates is good. It creates a time saving, which we initially thought it would create a time saving across the board. We later actually learned that if your initial prompts are good and get you close to a solution, then yes, it will create a time saving. But if with the first few prompts you're not really getting anywhere, then just don't use it. Just go back to standard programming, because otherwise you're going to waste a lot of time trying to get the AI to give you an output where either it might not have enough information on the web, because sometimes we have to integrate with really obscure APIs that have private documentation, and that is not great. Or maybe you don't know about the problem enough to ask for help. And then finally, a few quality things. Is the code maintainable, like readable, and will understand it in 6 months? And ideally, if it could follow the patterns of the project, that'd be great. We had quite a few learnings when trying out Cursor. That was one of them. Another learning was that it's really bad at choosing authentication methods. If you need to integrate with something that has many different methods, like, oh, let's choose, I needed to use the OAuth flow. How about OpenID though? No, OAuth, OpenID. Okay, you know what? Let me go and read the docs. I want you to use the documentation in this reference. Okay, might as well done it myself. Essentially, what we did was interview Cursor as if we were hiring a developer, because you are going to have to review its output. You need to make sure that you can trust this guy and that you can trust its output to a certain degree. So those were a few of the things that we looked at when choosing Cursor. Now, Cursor was only one of the many code helpers that were out there. Here at Springload, we don't force any tools on people. We believe that developers should be able to choose the tools that they feel most comfortable for the job. And if you're going to be adapting any tools that's supposed to help people should feel comfortable using them. You shouldn't have to get them to use a tool that's not giving the results they want. Nobody can know what tool is best for them than the people using them. But there are definitely many code assistants out there. Actually, as I mentioned earlier, a few people in our team don't use Cursor, they use Ada, but for a large part of our team, Cursor was great, because installing it in like transitioning from Visual Studio Code to Cursor was like instant, and it was like largely okay. But there are a few other things that we do for triaging tools. The first of it is keeping a registry. However, knowing our process, this registry is a lot more intentional. Before, we used to have a massive list of AI tools, and we were evaluating each and every single one of them. And to be honest, like, many of them were not really applicable to us. So now we identify an area, we define what we want our tool to do, and then we go out and look for tools that might do that. We also evaluate our tools against our policies and values. So among many things, you will know that privacy is a big concern with AI. So we make sure that all of the tools that we're using will definitely have a good private mode, and they will not be using our information and our clients' information to continue to train the model. And then the other thing is we also talk to friends and peers. There are so many people using AI, talking about AI. To be honest, the AI tools just reach us. It's really not necessary to go out and seek them, because they're so good at inserting themselves in our feeds. that honestly, it's more about filtering. I would really recommend leveraging really excited people in our team. When at the beginning we all started with excitement, that went for a lot of people, but a few people were still really keen and like sharing new AI tools. One great example is Bron. Bron here loves sharing new AI tools, and I love that because that means that my job is simply looking at them and being like, we might be able to use this for some part of our process, and like, that's cool. I'll play with it in my own time because this does not align with our business necessarily. Although she does a great job of already pre-filtering it, because there goes a first filter, Bron, second filter probably me and like the rest of the team having a look at our process. Really share with your team, make it really easy and accessible for people to not be afraid to put their hand up and say, hey, I found this tool, I think it could be helpful, shall we look into it? And then actually like put together an experiment and try it out. So in conclusion, a few key points. Know your process, triage the tools, test them and integrate them in a thoughtful way. You will want to prioritize areas where AI can offer genuine value. You will also want to filter which AI tools you look into, because there's too many out there. You don't have time to look into all of them. And finally, maintain human oversight, not only throughout the entire process of using AI, but also when choosing them, really talk to the humans around you and make sure that you're able to verify that the outputs that AI is generating are correct. Finally, opportunities are best harnessed when you're most prepared to see them. Know your process, know your tools, and you will start getting inspired about like which tools could match where. That is me. Thank you, everybody, for coming.